If your surname is on this list, it may not be your family's name at all. You're not just Irish by heritage, you may be carrying a legal instruction. In 1465, a parliament sitting in Dublin, in England's name, ordered Irish families in 4 counties to take an English surname. A town, a color, a trade, an office, refuse, and forfeit your goods. Stay until number 1, because that name may be the oldest hereditary surname in Europe, and English translated it out of existence. That law is 560 years old. The names are still here. Number 10. White. In Irish, Mac Gil O'Van, son of the fair youth. A description of a boy, the color of a child's hair remembered long enough to become a family. Then 1465 makes color a legal category, and the word stops describing anyone. White, black, brown. Choose one, swear the oath, shave the beard above the mouth, or forfeit everything you own every year for as long as you refuse. In Sligo, a family of the Fiachra held a townland called Lisnarawar, and they entered the English record as white. When the scholar John O'Donovan came through in 1844, nearly 400 years later, he found them still living on the same ground. Still, in English, always made white, not driven out, just renamed, in place, and left there. Some whites are English, and always have been. Some are that family in Sligo. And once the ink dried, no one on a ship's manifest could tell the difference. The camouflage worked. That was the cost. Some families were handed a new name and told to be grateful. One was offered a crown's worth of reasons to choose one. Number 9. Fitzpatrick. It sounds Norman. It isn't. Underneath sits Mac Gilla Fodrig, servant of Patrick, the royal line of Osria, kings in the Irish Midlands since before the 8th century. On the 11th of June, 1541, Brian Mac Gilla Fodrig hands that kingship to Henry VIII and takes it back as a barony. First Gaelic lord in Ireland to make the trade. The terms were written down and they were not vague. English speech, English dress, English law, English church. His heir was sent to be raised at the English court as a companion to a prince, punished in the prince's place when the prince misbehaved. Be fair to the man. The alternative on the table was conquest, and he'd watched what conquest looked like. He kept the land. He paid in language. And the Fitz on the front of the name isn't Irish and isn't English. It's Norman French, bolted onto a Gaelic patronymic like a lock fitted to somebody else's door. Every Fitzpatrick alive is carrying a treaty. A century later, another chief took the same bargain. It ended differently. Number 8. Fox. In Irish, the family were O'Caherney, the warlike ones. Chiefs of Teffia in the Midlands descended from Neil of the 9 Hostages. One of them, killed in 1084, was so cunning his own people stopped using his name and called him Unshun Uch, the Fox. And the nickname swallowed the surname whole. The sons took it, the grandsons took it, and the head of the family was simply known as the Fox for the next 500 years. Under the Tudors, they surrendered their territory and were re-granted it, becoming barons of Kilcour Sea and foxes in English. It looked like survival. Then in 1641, they rose with the rebellion, and the crown took the title, and the crown took the land, and the schedule of confiscation lists them only by the English name. That's the detail worth sitting with. When they were being stripped of everything, the paperwork didn't even use their real name. They kept it anyway. Every fox in Chicago or Melbourne is carrying an 11th century compliment that nobody ever bothered to translate back. The next name never had a castle to lose. That's exactly why the law reached it first. Number 7. Carpenter. In Dublin especially, that name is often Mac Untir, son of the craftsman. And in Gaelic Ireland, the craftsman wasn't a laborer. He was a rank, a man with standing, a place at the table, a skill the whole territory depended on. Carpenter is one of the trades written into the 1465 Act by name. Take it, and you were legal by morning. Elsewhere, the same bloodline didn't translate. It went phonetic and became McAteer, McIntyre, sometimes Freeman. One family, 4 surnames, depending entirely on which clerk you happened to stand in front of and whether he was in a hurry. There are brothers in Irish records under different English surnames, in the same decade, same parents, same townland, different pens. Those Carpenters emigrated and vanished into the crowd, because nothing about the name asked a question. Nobody at a port squinted at it. Nobody made them say it twice. That's what saved them. That's also what erased them. If this is landing for you, take 5 seconds, hit like, hit subscribe. 6 names left, and number 1 might be the oldest surname in Europe, turned into an English job title by a parish clerk. That's the one that stays with you. Let's keep going. Some names were translated with care. Some were only half understood. Number 6, Thornton. It sounds like a village in Yorkshire. Across South Caon Act in North Munster, it's usually O dry non, from dry un, the blackthorn. A hedge, a boundary, a place you belong to, growing out of the ground you were born on. English record keepers turned it into Thornton and swallowed 2 other Irish names in the same word, because if a name had anything thorny in it, Thornton would do. And here's where it stops being simple. Some Thorntons in Limerick were 16th century planters, English families given Irish land after Irish families were removed from it. So the dispossessed and the dispossessor ended up with identical surnames, indistinguishable on any page, in any register, forever. The same Irish root survived elsewhere as Drennan. 2 English names, 1 Irish word, and thousands of families today who genuinely cannot be certain which side of that line they came down from. That uncertainty isn't a gap in the research. It's the outcome the paperwork was designed to produce. This is where the record keeper stopped translating and started guessing. Number 5, Rabbitte. In Irish, O kin Ian, and it does not mean rabbit. It comes from a diminutive of an old word for a hound, a wolf, a fighting word, a name you'd give a boy you expected something from. But kin Ian in later Irish does mean rabbit. A clerk who half knew the language heard the second meaning, wrote Rabbitte, and closed the book. No statute, no policy, no forfeiture. 1 page, 1 afternoon, 1 man's guess, and a family in Galway has answered to it ever since. That's the part that should unsettle you. The 1465 Act only opened the door. Most of the damage on this list was done by ordinary men with bad Irish and too much work in front of them. Look for Caneen in the older records. Same people. And they carry Rabbitte proudly now. It's on hurling jerseys in Galway. 400 years on, the joke lost. If a clerk could turn a hound into a rabbit, think about what he did with a word that sounded like king. Number 4, king. Not royalty. A mishearing. Mac con ri in West Galway. Omwale con ur e in Roscommon. 2 more besides. 4 unrelated Irish families flattened into 1 English surname, because somewhere inside each of them was a syllable that sounded like re-king. They weren't kings. The Omwale Cain ur e were hereditary historians to Con Acht. Professional memory. The family whose job, for generations, was knowing who everyone was and where they came from. Farfasa O'Mwail Honura was one of the 4 men who compiled the Annals of the Four Masters in the 1630s, sitting down to write Ireland's record, while the language it was written in was being pushed out of every courthouse in the country, and his family's name was replaced in English by somebody's approximation of a sound. Somewhere in America right now, a family jokes about royal blood. It's a misheard syllable. It's also 700 years of professional memory, and nobody told them. The largest disappearance on this list is also the least noticeable. Number 3, Smith. In Ireland, it's very often Mac go on, son of the smith. And in Breffni, the old kingdom underneath County Cavan, the smith wasn't a tradesman. He made the weapons. He was named among the leading families of the territory, because whoever controlled the forge controlled what everyone else could do about anything. Smith is written into the 1465 Act by name, one of the permitted trades. In Cavan, the majority translated. Just over the county line, Leitrim, Donegal, Sligo, the same blood kept the sound and stayed McGowan. That border isn't geography. It's a border between two decisions made under pressure by people who couldn't have known which one their grandchildren would end up defending. Then in 1949, a man born in Coot Hill, County Cavan, walked into the genealogical office and formally took the old name back. 300 years, undone with paperwork. It can go the other way, almost nobody knows that. The last two names weren't traded and they weren't guessed at. They were taken from the men whose entire job was remembering. Number 2, Ward. In English, a watchman, someone who guards a gate. In Irish, Mac un Warge, son of the bard. Hereditary poets. The professional memory of the O'Donnells in Donegal and the O'Kellys in Galway at a place still called Ballymac Ward after them. Their land at those townlands was granted away to Trinity College. And a boy from that ground, I bui Mac un Warge, you Ward in English, ended up in exile in Louvain, in Flanders, running an Irish college for men who couldn't be educated at home. In 1626, he sent a lay brother back across the water with one instruction: gather the manuscripts before they're gone. Not for a library, because he'd worked out that the record itself was about to disappear. He died in 1635 without publishing a single line of what came back. And the English word now printed on his descendants' passports means watchman, a man who guards something, which, in the end, is exactly what he was. The brother he sent home carried the other name on this list. Number 1, clerk. From Clay Rook, the cleric, the scribe, the man who writes things down. In Irish, O Clay Ree. And when Tirnach Ua Clay Ree, Lord of Aenya in South Galway, died in 916, he was already carrying it as a fixed hereditary surname passed from father to son. Quite possibly the oldest true surname recorded anywhere in Europe, older than most of the countries that have one. Their power in Galway was broken by the 13th century. They scattered north into Donegal and became poets and genealogists to the O'Donnells. Their lands were granted away with everyone else's. And then, between 1632 and 1636, in a friary refuge at Bundrows, Mihal, O Clay Ree, and 3 others sat down and wrote the history of the Kingdom of Ireland from the beginning. Every king, every battle, every death, every name they could recover. They knew what was coming. It wasn't published in their lifetimes. None of them saw it in print. And while they were writing it, in the parish books a few miles away, their own name was quietly being turned into clerk, the word for their trade, in the language that was replacing them. They wrote down everyone's name but their own. Somewhere tonight there's a kitchen table with a laptop open on a civil registration index. Someone types their surname, and the same great-great-grandfather comes up twice in the same parish, 8 years apart, under 2 different names. Same townland, same handwriting. Nobody moved, nobody fled. Somebody just decided, probably in about 4 seconds, probably without telling the children. That's what those 4 categories became: a town, a color, a trade, an office, walking around now on passports in Boston and Sydney and Manchester and Toronto, and almost nobody carrying one knows it was once an item on a list. If your surname is on this list, it isn't administrative. It's a decision somebody made at a desk in a hurry, under pressure, so that the family would still be here afterwards. You're the proof it worked, so drop your surname in the comments below. I want to know which one you carry, And which of these 10 sat closest to your own people? And if you know the county, put that down too. I'm genuinely curious how many of these names are still out there, and how far they traveled. Subscribe if you want the next one.